Jason, thank you for being at Tommy Conversations today. And how was your morning this morning?
Yeah, good. Bit cold here in Melbourne. So I think the plan was we're going to shoot things outside today, but this is just as good. So we'll get through.
Yep, I do like the outdoor area, the courtyard.
Yeah.
It's just a pity that we can't sit on the bench.
Yep.
Outdoors today.
Unless we want a wet bum, so we won't do that. So,
I know you just came back from Bali. So that would have been a great break for you from forensic nursing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'd like to start on asking, how did you get into nursing?
Yeah, sure. So in year 12, just finished my exams, and I had no idea what I wanted to do as a career. Zero. And there was a lot of pressure that you need to start, applying for universities, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So we had like a careers book that you'd go through, and it'd say the study that you needed and the amount you get paid, and I was scanning through that, just trying to pick something because I didn't know, and I got really frustrated. I ended up tearing up the book, and Mum said, "Why'd you do that?" I said, "Mum, because I'm trying to make a choice for the rest of my life." Pretty much, that's how I was thinking. Mum had been a nursing assistant for 20 years or something, and she'd always said, "Jason, get into nursing. They make good money. You'll always have a job. You can travel wherever you want to." And I was kind of, no, I want something. I mean, at the time, I wanted something sort of maybe a little bit more manly. I mean, you have to remember, I'm 19 years old, sort of thing. I wanted a trade. But what I found is I always liked helping people. It was just in me to help me. It's just my nature. Like I had a friend, his pet chicken died, and at 16 I went to the market and I bought the family another little chicken, and just little things like that. Just always looking to help out other people. So I thought, well, maybe nursing is the way for me to go. So I thought, okay. So I applied for. I actually applied for physio, chiropractic, and pretty much nursing was the only really thing I got into with the marks that I had. Excuse my friend. And so I applied for 5 different graduate programs. And one of my friends said, have you considered going into forensic psychiatric nursing? And I didn't even know what that was, but I applied for it and I got it. And unfortunately, she went for it as well, and she didn't get it, so I felt a little bit bad about that. But that's pretty much how I got into nursing. And so I'm a general nurse, and I did the graduate program that I got into with forensic care. Did a postgraduate certificate through them, which was forensic psychiatric nursing.
Wow. It's good that you had your mum, sharing a little bit of what nursing was like when she did it, and so that kind of jump started that idea.
Yeah.
And then let the audience know what the graduate program was like in
forensic
psychiatric nursing.
Yeah, so originally it was the Rosanna Forensic Psychiatry Centre. So, and that was based at McLeod, the old Mont Park grounds. The old that's where the old the psychiatric bins were in the day that were sort of abolished later on. So the forensic program, the graduate program ran over 2 years. Sorry, it was 1 year, but the course ran over 2 years, and it was challenging. It really was. I mean, I was 22 years old, and I had never. So working in forensic, so you have to remember, forensic is criminal. So people that have committed crimes that have psychiatric history or illness at the time. So I was meeting people for the first time that had committed a major crime. Murderers, rapists, stalkers, major assaults. And I hadn't really met a murderer before. So to be honest, I was terrified. I was terrified of me, and because it was sort of the old Rosanna Forensic Psychiatry Centre, it was pretty much 2 big rooms during the day. And you got 18 very unwell. This is M6, which was the acute unit. 18 very unwell men on this unit in 2 rooms that are kind of joined, but they're there all day, and pretty much as a nurse, you'd have to go out and spend time out on the unit because you have to assess risk, you have to make sure that there's going to be no fights, so you'll be up against the wall for a lot of the day, like just praying that something bad wasn't going to happen. But they were very liberal with medication in those days. They would people were well medicated, and then as time went on, you know, a lot more patient rights and less medication. But the thing is, you know, that increased the danger as well, especially when people are really unwell. So yeah, it was quite stressful. But like everything, you get used to the environment, you get used to what you're doing, you get more confident in your colleagues and your own skills, and it becomes normal, which is a good and bad thing, I guess.
I was saying that's a really good thing that you were saying about medication.
Yeah.
When patients are not stabilised, because you were saying back in the days, medication was a bit more liberal. What was the worst scenario that happened that required medication instantly?
Yeah.
Like,
so you get some. So so a lot of the times they're prisoners that are becoming patients because they're still going through the court system. So what you'd find is you'd either get someone who's really unwell, who's like possibly even running around. This actually happened. We had a patient who came in who murdered someone a few days earlier, and was still so unwell that he was running around the courtyard and the nurses were trying to catch him and he was growling like an animal. And so, yeah, and he was a big guy, sort of thing. So, I mean, that really scary stuff. So our job at that time is to try and get him on the floor so he's safest and give him medication in injectable form that will just allow him to rest. He'll go into a secluded area where he'll be by himself, but he needs to be checked every 15 minutes. So their brain is all over the place. It's just fire, and it's not normal. So this medication just allows things just to stop, and allow people to rest. I guess the problem is that sort of when patients do start to get some insight, and they're coming out of this crisis stage, this florid psychosis, they realise that they've just murdered someone that they possibly have loved. And we've had a few suicides soon after that happens, even to the best of our ability of trying to observe them and make sure they're safe. Sometimes it's inevitable. So, like, you know, the drugs are a big part of a lot of people's psychosis. Cannabis. So people will have their first hit of cannabis, you know, have a smoke, and they become floridly psychotic straight away. There are people that will have cannabis for years and years and years and be fine, and then one day something will trigger something and paranoia comes into it, and they think mum's putting poison in my food, so, you know, God's talking to me. So there's all those different scenarios that are quite scary, and some are fixed illusions. Even when people become well, in the back of their mind, they still believe that they're Jesus Christ or someone else is the devil, or so yeah.
Do you get murderers and all these prisoners coming up and talking to you about how they committed the crime? Are you allowed to?
So we usually
counselling?
So we usually let the doctors do that, because you have to remember we're in a room with someone who's committed this major thing, and you don't want to open up something that's going to put yourself and them at risk. So you leave those questioning. Look, there are some nurses who go rogue and try and get, you know, why did you do what? And that's not our position. That's not what we need to do. We need to make sure that the people are safely medicated and the risk factor is low, and you get through the day without anyone getting injured. That's what the nurse's role was. So we also run groups and things that people can come, but they're not encouraged to devolve too much, because someone might have killed their children, sort of thing, and you might have someone else who's a father who, in the back of their mind, I'm going to get this bastard later on. He killed someone. And yet, like, that guy maybe murdered his mum, sort of thing. So a lot contraindications between what people actually think and what they do, and very quick to judge other people that did their crime, and very not reflective of what they've actually done themselves. So, yeah, very hypocritical sometimes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you have to leave the more counselling aspects to the psychiatric doctors.
Well,
That come in.
the psychologists, and we're there to pretty much pick up the pieces after they have these intense sessions, pretty much. Pick up the pieces as in making sure people are safe, sort of thing. A lot of people come out and want a PRN. A PRN is just a medication when required that nurses can give, diazepam, clonazepam, things like that. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you're one-on-one and you're in a corner of a room, and if you say something that's wrong that could, trigger this person, you could be in danger.
Yeah. They can comment.
Yeah. So you have to.
They're not
you have to be
restrained,
very-
are they? They're just not restrained. Yeah.
No.
They're-
So if someone is unwell or a risk to themselves or others, they'll be put in seclusion. And seclusion is pretty much, it's not a padded cell, but it's the old padded cell kind of thing. But it's not for nurse. So when someone is taken down and needs to be put in seclusion, it's all nurses. There's no security guards. So you've got someone that you've been trying to build rapport with, and all of a sudden they're unwell, and all these nurses are jumping on them and trying to contain them. So we did training, like in how to seclude people, how to defend yourself. But it's tough. You got this big guy with tattoos and muscling, and all he does is work out all day. And you might have these like 2 young female graduate nurses that you're working with, who you have to jump on them, and like they're just going to get thrown around. It's dangerous. And and that's one of the reasons why I think I've kind of moved on from forensic care, because I'm now with the Austin. I've been with the Austin going on 10 years. There are some aspects of forensic nursing there, because we do have some people transitioning from Thomas Emling to the Austin, which is like a residential program. But it was more just the lack of security at Thomas Emling. You'd think that you'd have security guards everywhere. There's security guards at normal psychiatric hospitals, and yet a forensic psychiatric hospital, when there's an emergency, you hit your alarm and nurses come running. Not security. There's no security on the units at all. That just never made sense to me.
Yeah, isn't there a code? I thought your hospital is like a code black, a code blue.
Yeah,
And
so
I thought surely
that's
there should be security.
so that's mainly general hospitals. At Thomas Emling, you pretty much have a duress, and you press the duress, and then people just come running from everywhere. But the thing is, they're clinicians.
Yeah,
Nursing
stuff.
so I've built rapport with you, right? I'm talking. We're doing okay, and then you get angry and stuff like that, and I'm the one that has to take you down to the floor, have another nurse come and inject you. You get put in seclusion for a day or so until you're well enough to come out, and then I've got to build rapport with you again. It doesn't work. Whereas if they had security to do those things, it takes away from the clinician and what they're trying to do, which is care.
Yeah.
So to me, a lot of that stuff just didn't make sense, and it still doesn't make sense today, because they're still operating in that way.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it takes time to build rapport. You still trust. And yes, they're prisoners, and they may have committed a crime.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there's that human aspect of it.
Yeah. So when they come to Thomas Emling Hospital, often they've been found not guilty on the grounds of mental impairment. So they're classified as a patient, not a prisoner, but they have committed a crime. So what happens then is that because they're a patient, they don't get sentenced. It goes on risk to the community before they can gradually be released back into the community safely. What a lot of people think. So, someone who's murdered someone will go to court, and they're found not guilty grounds of mental impairment, and they're given a nominal term of 25 years. Now people think, oh, good, they got 25 years. No, they didn't get 25 years. They're not a prisoner. They're not sentenced. It just means that if they're still in hospital after 25 years, it needs to go back for a major review at the courts to see whether they should still be there. So no one is sentenced when they're found not guilty on the grounds of mental impairment. So, and this was another thing, it's the red tape and politics around where I worked at Forensic Care, Thomas Emling, that I kind of needed to move on, So these people were found not guilty on the grounds of mental impairment. Now, a lot of the time, so there was this one case where this guy murdered his parents. And because he was found not guilty on the grounds of mental impairment, he was still eligible to get the will from his parents. And because he was the eldest, he became sort of the administrator of the will, and he gave none, and which he's supposed to divvy out to his other two siblings. He gave none of that money to his siblings. He kept the house, he kept hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he's the one that murdered his parents. And so those other two siblings had to take him to court, and because of the way the law is, they got nothing. And I just had enough. I had enough with the system. I had enough with, people trying to protect people's feelings where it overruns like sensibility. Just didn't understand that. And it's still to the day. So what they need to do is they need to change it, is that you've been found guilty on the grounds of mental impairment. You did do the crime. That just didn't make sense to me. And that's why I moved on from forensic care. There were these little things that started just to bother me.
Like the justice of it. Like you feel...
There's no justice for the victim and the families. There's more justice for the actual, for the person that actually committed the crime.
That you were a little bit questioning the idea of how come, they're not deemed the fact that they did commit the crime on the basis of mental impairment, that they got away with that part of...
Well, it's not that they got away with it. It's just that it was like they were treated like... Not that it was an excuse, but like that they're not responsible for their actions, and to a point they're kind of not responsible, but they did do the actual act, and so patients were confused and and then look, I think wokeism has started probably about 10 years ago, just before I left, because people were more into patient rights rather than staff safety and staff rights. Just to give you an example, we had someone out on the unit who was really unwell, and we put him in seclusion, and then management would come down and saying, why did you put him in seclusion? But the thing is, right, a lot of the management had never worked on a psychiatric unit before. They had bachelor degrees in business and stuff like that, and coming down, and because their figures didn't look right at the end of their spreadsheets, didn't look right, they needed to reduce seclusion. They needed to not medicate as much. They needed to, and this was just putting staff at risk, sort of thing. We had someone out on the unit who was quite unwell, and we're organising to seclude them. Someone from management came down who doesn't work on the unit and said, there's no need to seclude, I'll go deal with that. So she went out onto the unit to speak to this patient who was unwell, and we're planning to seclude. She got assaulted. Come back in and blamed staff for not
reminding her,
not telling her that it was dangerous, she shouldn't have gone out there. And I just thought, look, I've had enough of this. This is not working. When patient rights sort of exceed the rights and safety of staff, I thought, this is not for me anymore.
Can staff give feedback? Can you?
They do, but it's bigger than any complaints. You can complain till you're blue in the face. Systems aren't going to change because, we had strikes at times because nursing has strikes because we thought the conditions weren't fair and all that stuff. Nothing changed. In the end, it's business. Thomas, forensic care, it's a business sort of thing. The thing is, it's overseen by government organisations that give funding, and you need to show that figures are good. People don't want to see people secluded, but they don't understand that these are violent offenders who, when unwell, can do major crimes, sort of thing. So,
at any given time, how many patients do you have to look after?
So a ward will hold, for the male units, would have 18 patients on a unit. For the female units, usually about 10. And the reason why the female units are 10 is because for some reason, unwell females that we come across. There's a lot of personality issues, and men will have a fight and be best friends the next day. Women will have a fight and it'll just be ongoing for months and months and months, sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's different.
Can you, when you're on site, do you get paired up with a fellow nurse? Do you,
Yeah, so
for safety, what are safety mechanisms?
Yeah, so on the acute units, you were very much encouraged to be with someone at all times, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So you have to remember that I'm speaking from experience from 10 years ago, because I was with forensic care for 18 years. 7 of those years was in the community where I dealt with prisons and the court system. So things may have changed completely now with forensic care in Thomas Emling Hospital. I'm just talking about my experience from then. So yeah, because I'm at the Austin now, as I said, and going on 10 years there. So look, if anyone were to, if a nurse studying asked me, should I go do a graduate program at Forensic Care, Thomas Emling, work with forensic patients and offenders, I'd say absolutely, do it. It was a great experience for me. I learnt a lot. I learnt about risk. But when you work in a field for so long, you can see where things can probably improve and you don't understand and you don't, you think things need to change here. But that's everybody. That's part of your career. That's part of growing, part of your experience. So yeah, I think the staff and management do a wonderful job. It's a very difficult job. I think they do a wonderful job, and I'd recommend it to any graduate nurse to go to forensic and do the graduate there, because if they want to stay in the psychiatric field, it's the best springboard for your career. It looks so good on paper that you've done this, because it's some of the hardest psychiatric nursing you'll ever do.
What's graduate nursing like, as opposed to you having done a few years of training already?
Yeah.
Is there a specific set of boxes you have to tick as a graduate nurse? Yeah,
so everyone's a general. So there used to be psychiatric nursing studies, and there used to be general, and they used to be separate. Now they're just general nursing. You're a general, like I'm a general nurse. And then when you finish your 3 years, you specialise in cardiac and in adolescent, all these different things. So you can either go general training, general career, or you can go psychiatric. I went psychiatric, and now there's 2-year programs. Like at the Austin, there's a 2-year program that you do and you study. I studied mine at RMIT, got my postgraduate certificate, so it's just because you do your 3 years of nursing and you think it's over, now I can earn some money. Yeah, you're earning money, but you're also going to be studying furthermore on top of a full-time job, which I wasn't aware at the time. I did not like study at all. I'm not academic at all. I got through pretty much just with my nursing studies. I used to have to lock myself in a caravan that we had at my parents' backyard and just study for the whole week, just trying to
lock on information.
It's just memorizing stuff. It's not. I don't know if I actually learnt it. I was just trying to memorize, which that's all actors do, and so trying to come up with different codes so I'd remember how this works and that works, and
just to pass exams. Yeah, it's like
just to pass exams.
Information onto paper.
I hated it. I hated every second of it. I felt like a prisoner in my bedroom, like doing these assignments that I didn't want to do. I remember when I first went to uni and I handed in my first ever assignment and it was handwritten. And I got that given back to me quick smart and said, no, this needs to be typed out. We didn't have a computer then. I had a typewriter, which I couldn't type. So thank goodness I had sisters who could type pretty quickly, and they used to type up my assignments for me because...
lucky you. Sisters.
Yeah. No, I got a great family.
Yeah. I love the girls in your family.
Absolutely.
Your mum, your sisters.
Yeah.
Shout out to them.
Yeah. Dad's cool as well.
I'm sure he is. So you mentioned about mental health. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and forensic mental health?
Yeah. So mental health, so every hospital, pretty much every major hospital in the state has a psychiatric unit. So they'll have an acute psychiatric unit and they'll have a secure psychiatric unit. Secure is sort of more for chronic, ongoing, long-term. And acute is 72-hour assessment, see if you stay on, get medication right, pretty much back into the community. So that's so pretty much anyone from the public can go into these general hospitals. Whereas forensic is you've actually committed a crime, you've been arrested, you're taken to a holding cell at the Melbourne Assessment Prison. And if someone sees that you have a psychiatric illness or that you're not presenting right, you'll be assessed, which is what I used to do as well at the Melbourne Magistrate Court. You'll be assessed to see whether a further assessment is needed to see if you're mentally stable, and that's when their legal team will advise them to go down which route.
Yeah. Okay.
See, so someone that pleads guilty, right, might get 7 years and be out. Someone that pleads not guilty on grounds of insanity, of mental illness, may go to hospital and never get out. So people go, oh, I'll just plead mental illness and I'll be out. And so no, if you're seriously unwell and you're at risk, you may never get out of hospital. Which is, I mean, and the hospital is like a prison, as in, it's secure,
So Thomas Embling Hospital literally secured.
It's a secure, high security hospital. Yeah.
They can't escape, right?
There'll be cameras everywhere. There have been some patients that have escaped. So they graduate to have leave into the community. So they might have an hour leave with two nurses to go down to the coffee shop, and they build up their leave. And sometimes people do a runner.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Completely out of the hospital.
Yeah.
Because does leave entail you're allowed to leave the hospital to go home to your own private space?
Yeah. So it goes to the forensic leave panel, which is part of the court system, and they grant people leave to gradually build up to get to overnight leave, 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. It does take time, but we've had some people that have been on leave and unescorted, and they've ended up in Queensland and tried to take off.
Wow.
And then they come back and they lose all their leave and they have to start all over again.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how do you track them if they go to Queensland and never report back?
Yeah. Well, it becomes a police issue, and then the police just
investigation kicks in again.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the challenges of working with the prison system and courts?
Yeah.
Because once you've committed a crime, is it the prison term that determines how long they have to be in care? Yeah. Yeah.
So if they're found not guilty on grounds of mental impairment and they go to a hospital, there's no sentence and there's no set time. It's just it's the psychiatrist saying that this person is fit enough, well enough to actually start the process of having leave to the point of getting back in the community. I think the quickest I've seen someone out that's actually murdered someone has been a minimum probably 2 years and back in the community because they became very well again and they were back in the community. And yet I know people that are in hospital and they'll never get out because they're just too unwell, too much of a fixed delusion, and they will commit another crime. They will. So
they never rehabilitate. Or are they aware, they're conscious of them murdering someone? And then how do they...
A lot of times they can justify it. They say no, he was a child molester and I did you should be thanking me. The problem is the person they murdered had nothing to do with whatever their delusion said it was. So a lot of times the insight isn't always there, and a lot of times when they do get insight, they can't handle what they've actually done, and they'll probably try and self-harm and do things to themselves. So I guess you're saying that the hardest part of working at the time in forensic was working with dangerous people when they're unwell. And I'm not a big guy, so you know, but there are a lot of very good trained staff there, and you've always got other staff members who, you know, who are there and supporting you and got your back, and very much a team effort. So yeah, and there's a lot of training. When at Forensic Care, there was a lot of training for a lot of different things. So yeah, the program they run there is really good for staff.
You mentioned, you know, as a nurse, you have to bill report, but then the next moment there might be a danger to surrounding staff.
Yeah.
When they lose control, you
Yeah.
know, then you have to put them on the floor,
Yeah.
to restrain them, but then the next day you kind of have to do it all over again. Like you have to bill report again.
Yeah.
What is your technique of billing report over and over again?
Slowly. Because you have to remember, these people are put in seclusion. They got a lot of time to think about, you know, Jason, that bastard, grabbed my leg after I was just telling him how much, you know, telling him, we were talking about footy that morning, and all of a sudden now he's, you know, he's on top of me and he's got my arm in a hold, and there's a lot of time to think in seclusion. And often they'd present well in seclusion enough to come back into the ward. They'd come out and go straight for someone and bang, king hit again, down. So
They have to go back to seclusion, basically. Yeah.
back to seclusion, and you know, just go off a bit. It's not a staff member, but you know, sometimes it was.
When you say seclusion, it literally is one jail cell. Oh, look at
It's the old padded cell, but it's not padded cell. There's no hanging areas, you know, where someone can harm themselves. It's just pretty much a toilet, a basin, and
nothing
just
sharp
a white room, low stimulus, you know. Just let people rest, because they often, when they go seclusion, they've had medication and they'll sleep it off for, you know, 4 or 5 hours, just enough to give the brain just to relax and, you know, and recover until they're well enough to come out. But there have been people in seclusion for months and months and months, and even though the powers that be above saying you need to get this person out, and as soon as they come out, they assault someone, so they go back in. So very, very difficult.
You mentioned since Forensic Care, you then went to Austin Hospital.
Yeah.
Is there much difference from Austin Hospital?
Yeah, so I went from pretty much inpatient and community forensic nursing to pretty much residential. So where I'm at now is a community recovery program at the Austin Hospital, and it's run by Austin staff, which is clinical, and mine staff, which is more recovery. So we've got two different services pretty much coming together, and we just help reintegrate people back into the community, but we also have an affiliation with Forensic Care. So we have, I think it's 6 to 8 forensic beds that can transition from Thomas Emberling through the Austin back into the community. So I kind of never really escaped the forensic system, because a lot of people that are with me now, I've nursed for many years at Thomas Emberling. So I've got that rapport, and you know, and you know, sometimes, most of the time successful. Sometimes they go back to Thomas Emberling, and it's just a process.
What is the longest standing patient that just was pretty much stuck in the hospital, that never really healed?
Oh, 20, 30 years.
Back to
It died in hospital, pretty much. Yeah, committed their offence, committed major offences, and was just very unwell, very like notorious sort of criminals who knew Chopper Reed, who, you know, would deal with a lot of the prison types, but was so unwell that they have to be transferred from hospital back to prison, back to hospital, back to prison. So one of our patients who passed away years ago, he murdered some Salvation Army workers and took them out to the bush, into the forest to bury them, and his car got bogged, and the police found him with the 2 human bodies under the wheels, because he was trying to chock them to try and get out of the bog, and he believes that he was assaulted as a child by Salvation Army workers, and that's why he did it. But he ended up dying in prison, but just very unwell. Yeah, he actually gets a mention in one of Chopper Reed's books, and Chopper said that he was one of the most dangerous, craziest person he's ever met, sort of thing. So, interesting characters.
When the psychologists go and checks in with these patients, Do they traditionally have like a nursing staff with them?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
so it's usually
two clinicians, huh?
Yeah. So it's the psychiatrist. So and when it's safe enough, then they'll see the psychologist and start working on certain things. But the psychiatrist will often have another nurse in there who has a duress ready to go. Yeah, 90% everything goes to script. There's no problem, and then sometimes it doesn't.
So is it like you have to go to the prisons as a nurse? How does it work? Or do they...
Yeah. So out of the 18 years that I was in with forensic care, 7 of those years in the middle I worked in the community forensic service. And part of our role is we used to case manage Thomas Embling patients coming into the community, making sure they're all safe. With that role, I used to cover Melbourne Magistrates Court, where I'd go do assessments down at the holding cells. And in those assessments, I'd see whether they needed extra assessment, because there's obviously a history, or they're presenting as psychotic. And once a week, I'd go to the Melbourne Assessment Prison, and so they changed this. They added this to our case management, where I'd have to go to the prisons once a week, Melbourne Assessment Prison, and I used to have to assess people who are about to be released. Now, these people had pretty much nothing to do with forensic care, but they were being released. And what they wanted the case managers to do is to do short-term case management, just get people back into the community for, I think it was 2 weeks. So the thing is, right, I go assess someone. These people know they're getting out soon. And I'm saying, look, I'm here to help you get back into the community. I'm only going to case manage you for 2 weeks. We can set up your GP. We can set up any Centrelink stuff that you need help with. Make sure you're getting your medication. And they'll go, yeah, sure, no worries, thank you. Yeah, thank you, that's great. Okay, so someone who's been locked up for 2 or 3 years and they get out, what's the first thing they're going to do?
Live it up.
Drugs, alcohol, sex,
freedom. Because
that's what I would do, right? And so that they get released. I take them from prison. I take them to where they're going to stay. I'll say, I'm going to pick you up tomorrow morning. We're going to go. Well, I've made an appointment for your GP. Okay, so I go knock on their door. No answer. I go knock on the door. No answer. Sort of thing. They finally answer, and they're high. They've been drinking all night, because a lot of these people come out. They're not on parole. It's just straight release, and I just felt so unsafe.
They're on drugs, sex, and rock and roll, like what you were saying.
That's what I'll do. So pretty much, I told management, I said, this is not right. I don't feel safe. And they said, well, you're a senior clinician, so you should be able to identify risk. And I said, how do you do that when someone's not answering the phone and you have to go to their front door? Well, you take someone else with you. And I said, okay, so both of us will get stabbed. Sort of thing.
It's like another extra human in danger.
I don't understand that having an extra person there is not going to mitigate risk or lower risk. And this is why I end up taking some time off, because I thought, I don't want to do it. I feel unsafe. I'm meeting people that I haven't really built rapport with, because it's been in the prison system. So pretty much the first 3 patients I had, they're not patients, they're prisoners, released prisoners. The first 3, 2 of them ended up back in prison within 24 to 48 hours. 2 of them. And I think probably my 5th one overdosed, because he used to take drugs full on, and then committed an offence, went into prison, and then he'd come out and he'd have some heroin, what he used to have, but he hasn't had it for so long, and he'd kill himself. It's called a hot shot. Prisoners will go out and have hot shots. They think their tolerance is the same, and they die. And the thing is, right, the powers that be come pointing at, geez, they died. They're kind of under your care. You didn't pick that up. Of course I picked it up. What am I going to do? Yeah. Sort of thing. So a lot of finger pointing, a lot of, you're answerable to this. What could have you done different?
But they were in their own private homes. Yeah?
Absolutely.
So there's no way, unless you lived with them.
And someone in their own private home has access to has access to guns, knives, and Like there was a psychologist who went to visit one of the patients at their home, and she was murdered by him, sort of thing. This is a long time ago, and excuse my friend, but a lot of times, I mean, those sort of things in the back of your mind. And as a senior clinician and thinking of risk, you need to question these things. But the thing is, I was made to feel like, you have the skills to deal with this. What bullshit. What absolute bullshit. And the thing is, right, you're getting told this by a manager who's sitting behind her desk, who hasn't probably worked in the, actually out in the field for a long time. So
it's obviously factual that even patients or prisoners that go to care on the 24-hour surveillance could still commit suicide, let alone sending a forensic psych nurse into their private territory and expecting...
Yeah, it's something you can't control. You just cannot control.
Yeah.
You can have someone in seclusion and they can still commit suicide, even under 15-minute watch or constant observations. It just takes someone to get on a bed and jump and hit their, on their head, and they can kill themselves.
Yeah,
you can't help it.
And this is them causing harm to themselves, malicious behaviour themselves. But imagine malicious behaviour directed to clinicians.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think whether you're a senior or not, that's separate. Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything.
No.
Doesn't mean anything.
Not if you're unprepared.
I know. And it's all about building that rapport as well. And I know some very, very senior nurses who get assaulted frequently because of just their attitude and the way they talk to people, the way they deal with them. They talk to them like they're children, or they come across as very authoritarian and, you should not do this, you should not do... And they get assaulted. And the thing is, they'll come back into the nurses' station and make everyone else at risk because of the way that they talk or treat patients as well.
Because patients see you as the same community of people. Like, you are clinicians, and you might be a threat to me. Because one of the nurses stepped a line a bit.
I treat everyone the same. And I think that's why I haven't really been assaulted. I think the first week I ever worked at Forensic Care as a graduate, that person I spoke about before, the Salvation Army workers, he came up to me and he goes, "So what would you do if I punched you right in the face now?" And I said, I'd probably cry. And he goes, "Yeah, good answer." And he left me alone. He left me alone. Because I didn't come across as, "Oh, well, I'll have you put in seclusion and you'll do that." No. Yeah.
You gave a feeling. And he resonated.
He left me alone. Yep. And the thing is, right, from then onwards, every time if someone would have a go at me, he'd be in the background standing up for me. And he used to do that with nurses as well. And this is someone who's done some pretty horrible stuff. Yes. But the thing is, I treated him with respect, sort of thing. And I think that's and I treat everyone the same. I try and help everyone. Like the current job I do now, I go out of my way to help residents and patients, and I go out of my way, above what I should be doing. And that's a lot of patients want sort of me as to help them with their key working and all that sort of stuff, because I just treat them like everyone else, sort of thing. So, do
you see your nursing colleagues get into psychology?
Yeah, some do.
Would it be intriguing to get into the mind of these murderers?
Yeah.
Whilst you're trying to give care or treatment.
I think it takes a special kind of person to sort of get really into that stuff, a real big interest. I've never had that interest, pretty much. I've never been one to want to climb up the corporate scale and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I've recently been acting up as manager at the Austin where I am now. Just because manager had some maternity leave. Excuse me. And it's such a different role, but you're not dealing with the patients as much. You're dealing with staff, and like dealing with. So I treat everyone the same. So I treat staff the same. I try and help as much as I can. But I remember a unit manager at Thomas Emling Hospital who said to me, she said, she goes. She was very hard person. She was very hard towards staff and patients and stuff like that. She said, I'm not here to be liked. I've got a job to do and I'm not here to be liked." And I learned so much from that of how not to manage. Because, the job got done, but she wasn't liked. the job can get done and be liked, and you'll get a better outcome from your staff. She never understood that. She'd come and sort of, you know, be all authoritarian and, you know, I need to talk to you right now into my office sort of thing. And so I learned a lot from her of not what to do. Shout out if you know who you are. I'm doing really well, thanks.
So that's not the way you manage people. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you treat people with respect and kindness, they'd want to do it. And they'd want to do more for you because you appreciate it so much. This unit manager, people just did not like the way she managed. And when she said, you know, I'm not here to make friends. You can make friends. You can be friendly and get exactly the same result.
When you say people, it's like collectively a lot of, not just a singular person.
No, it's your whole team.
Yeah, that means you've got to do some self-reflection.
It's your whole team.
Right? If everybody's
some
talking about
people some people just don't get it though, and they'll never get it.
No
It's
self-awareness.
It's the old battle axe nurse mentality, which you don't. They used. It's still the way they used to sort of nurse when they had the big psychiatric bins sort of thing. It was very, you know, the white coat and the, you know, the standard, you know, and just. It just doesn't happen anymore.
I've seen nurses where they try to override doctors.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. And the thing that I've always I call all our doctors doctor. You know, out of a sign of respect and where I've sort of come from, because doctors appreciate that. Unless they correct me and say, no, call me John. I'm going to call him doctor, sort of thing.
Yep.
And you know, it's just a sign of respect that has sort of gotten lost over the years. But
so psychiatrists would list down what medication and dosage, and as nursing staff, you then give that allocated.
We implement it, yeah.
You implement it.
So the only thing that we can change is how much we think what the medication requires. So if someone's very stressed, we have access to give them some diazepam. So that's the only thing we have discretion over. It's actually already prescribed, but as a PRN. So nurses don't really have a say. There are some nurses who will try and have a say in what they should be on and what they should do, but that's not our place.
What is the most popular drugs that you administer that always works?
Yeah, so probably the best medication that always works, but is clozapine. So clozapine's an oral antipsychotic medication, but unfortunately it can come with some horrendous side effects. And so they check their white blood cells and the neutrophils, and they sometimes can go out of whack. And if they're not within certain ranges, you have to stop the medication, or else it can be quite dangerous to that person. But I've seen people who have been floridly psychotic, so unwell, murder and go on clozapine, and their bloods are fine, and they end up leading quite normal lives in the community. It's just the side effect stuff. So if there's compliance issues that a person can't take oral medication, they'll be put on what's called a depot injection, and that's something that is like suspended in oil, and it will last up to 2 weeks in your system, and so this person will need to be injected up to 2 weeks. It can go up to 4 weeks. And that'll just stay in their system and slowly release.
So in that system, you can't allow patients to take the medication themselves. Yeah, you would have to be present to see them.
So the
take it before you leave, huh?
Yeah. So initially, compliance is a huge issue. So everyone is supervised at the start. Anyone in hospital is supervised pretty much, and when they get into the community, they're either supervised or they're unsupervised, or they're going through a stage where they'll actually ring and say, "I've taken my meds," and then we'll do like medication checks to make sure that they have taken it throughout the week. But anyone in hospital, 100% supervised. Yeah.
You mentioned that you also do a lot of notes on the system.
Yeah.
When you've checked in with each patient, is that?
Yeah, so clinical notes need to be done every shift. Yep, it's a legal requirement. And in those notes, you have to put down sort of risk. You have to do mini mental state assessments, and you've got to make sure that you've put down that they're compliant with their medication, And it's just a sort of an over. So every shift needs to do. So you usually have 3 shifts in a 24-hour period: AM shift, PM shift, and night shift. A note has to be in there for every shift.
Yeah, because you mentioned to me that sometimes you're on night shift.
Yeah.
And you know, that starts at, is it after 7 p.m?
So night shift starts at 9 o'clock and finishes at 7 a.m.
9 p.m. to
9 p.m. to 7 a.m.
7 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a long shift, and you need to stay awake. So you're up for pretty much 10 hours, and just your main focus is just to stay awake. So
you're dealing with such intense situations where
in hospital,
they're going in and out of like delusional states or whatever.
Yeah, in hospital it's not so bad. I mean, because like people have medication to help them sleep. But in the community, it's really no, because I'm in the community now, residential program. There's no issue. You hardly see a resident overnight unless there's something going on. But it's rare. So you're just there in case something were to happen.
Yeah, like they're meant to sleep.
Yeah.
Then the AM, PM shifts.
Yeah. So a lot of the times, the night staff will hardly see any patients. Maybe at the start of the shift, maybe coming to the end, but in the middle, you just got to be awake and ready. Yeah.
I mean, we have probably another 5-10 minutes if you want to keep talking.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think we've covered in depth of a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, before I was like, some people might study further and go into a slightly like a associating pathway, like psychology.
Yeah.
But you already mentioned that to some people, it takes a certain type of person to do that.
Yeah.
But that's not really your interest. So obviously,
some people love to study. Some people just study, and just keep. And pretty much hardly earn the money that they need to do. I just think it takes a special person who really enjoys the sort of academic aspect of it, and that's not me. I'm more hands-on. I'd rather be out talking to someone than be stuck in an office on a computer trying to type up, case reviews and stuff like that. But there are other staff who they just love doing the case reviews. They love putting so much effort into all this sort of stuff and sort of not be so hands-on. It takes a lot of different types of people.
I was going to say that, when you're saying you're building rapport with patients, the prisoners, if it was in prison situation, how long do you get allocated time? Like when you have to stabilize the situation?
Yeah.
When you need to go make sure, the drugs administered is taken properly.
Yeah.
Is it time-based per patient? Because you have to go through multiple patients?
No, it just varies. Like a lot of people won't want to talk to me, and that's okay. But I will say, hey, how you going, Brian? I'm here if you need me, mate. Want to chat? Just come and knock on the door, and we'll have a chat. Yeah. So often they'll go, oh, can we chat now? Or yeah, all right, thanks. But you just offer it.
You have to read that space. Like you have to figure them out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Trying to talk to someone who doesn't want to talk to you is only going to sort of make things, increase risk and inflame a situation that may have not been there if you just backed off a little bit. Yeah. So it's more reading the situation. And you look at eye contact. You look at sort of body posture. There are a lot of things. You most importantly read the notes. Have handover of what's happened overnight. He may have been in a fight, or he may have been, and you come on and you're like, hey, how you going? Yeah. No, before you talk to anybody, get a handover, know what's happened. Because you could be putting yourself and others in danger if you don't. Yep,
and handover is the previous shift's nurse.
Yep.
Normally they'll write things down. Do you just go read the notes or you go speak to them?
No. The handover is verbal. Yeah, from the notes of what happened overnight. So it's probably one of the most important meetings you'll have every shift.
Absolutely,
is that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I know we talked about some of the other things that needs improving.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In the system, but I think this part's definitely good.
Look, everyone's got their opinion of how things can improve. I think overall, things are very patient focused, which is fantastic. It's great for the patients. It's great for care. And now I think things are starting to get back on track, that staff need to be taken care of just as much. So look, things are definitely on the right track. This has just been my opinion over for many, many years. So it's not something that drastically needs to change. It's just things that I've picked up, which everyone has their opinion about. But overall, I think nursing is a great career, and especially like forensic nursing, psychiatric nursing. So it's definitely something that sort of, young students should consider.
Yeah.
It's been good for me.
Yeah. Apart from studying, you were saying. But you were saying it's 3 years of nursing.
Yeah. But I didn't enjoy study
postgrad.
at all. Yeah. And then the postgrad, I didn't enjoy study at all. Yeah.
Now, the postgrad studies, is it defined subjects? Like a must study, compulsory?
Yep.
Units.
Yeah.
They have to study.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not like
there's
not
like
electives anymore, is it?
there's like probably 6 different subjects that you have to study, and all of them require an assignment. There are no tests; it's all assignment based. But you need to do it. Like, you need to do a 2,000 word assignment, which is probably not that much in hindsight. But the thing is, you're also working full time as well. So you come at home and then you've got homework to do and stuff like that. Whereas I didn't know that. I didn't expect that. I just thought, I've graduated, I'm going to earn money, I'm going to work now. But no, there's always ongoing education going, even regarding that, regardless of that.
You mentioned that you're in a managing position now.
Yes, I was acting up. I've gone back to my regular, just in charge of the unit situation, but I was a manager, just filling in for, I think it was 6 to 8 weeks, which was a big learning experience for me.
Would you say it's less hands-on if you're managing?
Less hands-on for patients, yes. 10 times as much hands-on for staff. So, and like you're dealing with staff issues, and you're dealing with people when they go on holiday, people when they go on stress leave. You're dealing with risk, you're dealing with KPIs, with different statistics and upper management and all that sort of stuff. So it was times 10 what I was doing, but I actually found that did I enjoy it? I think I started to enjoy the pace of it because I was so busy. My days were going so quick. Whereas going back to my other role, it can be quite slow because you're dealing with patients who get up late or go to bed early and all that sort of stuff. So it was just completely different. Good experience. Would I want to go down that track? No. I think I'm in my final years of nursing. I'd probably want to retire soon, semi-retire maybe, and just start living life a little bit. I just hit 50, so it's starting to, in the middle of crisis, it's definitely starting to kick in. So, if I'm expecting to live to 75, there's not that much time left where I'm going to be able to do what I want to do. So
you've done so well keeping pace and sanity when you're in an environment of people that are insane, that are murderers, rapists and whatnot. So you know what?
There's been a lot of self-medication, no? As in, like, you come home and you have your glass of wine. And that glass of wine doesn't often finish with a glass of wine. Often you're going through a bottle, and because you're just trying to forget the day or something like that. But it's a fine line of looking after yourself, and you never stop learning. I'm still learning about myself. I still do a lot wrong in my personal life. But I'm still learning. I'm getting there. So
well, I'm glad you have time for golf. So
golf has been good. Golf is something I love to hate. I'm no good at it, but sometimes you just got to go out, and it's just a nice walk with some friends, regardless of hitting a little ball into a hole, because it can be really frustrating. But it's been a nice hobby that sort of a group of my friends have all sort of taken part in. So there's 4 of us. We're all from the same high school. We've all kept in contact. But yeah, it's just nice to get away sometimes, get out of your head a little bit, which is good.
You've dropped some great advice for the audience that wants to get into nursing and forensic psychiatry. Is such a prominent area in a society.
Yeah.
I keep thinking it's general nursing that you see in the hospitals.
Yeah.
In certain wards.
Yeah. Different field.
Yeah, we just don't, often, the psychiatry wards are kept separate.
Yeah.
You don't really witness.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People that are, flagged as like high danger. So yeah, it's been a great talking session.
Yeah,
about
thank
a lot
you.
of different hospitals that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, when you think of like murderers and think you'll never come across a murderer ever. The thing is, you know, within probably 5 kilometres of where you live, there's a murderer who's been through the system, been through Tom assembling, been through the prison system, who's living maybe next door. You just don't know. And that's why just in the community you treat everyone with respect, because you just never know who you're talking to, and you never know where things could go.
Do you have a radar?
Yeah. Well, I looked at, I mean, sex offenders, you can get on online and it tells you where they are. But they don't have that for just you know, murderers and stuff like that. So, yeah, and that's why, like, you know, even with road rage, you know, don't beep your horn at someone and be angry because you don't know who you're talking to. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Keep your cool all the time, be respectful, and, you know, that's the only way you're going to keep safe.
Be as patient as you can.
Absolutely.
On that note, thank you for your time.
No worries. Thank you, Mel. Nice seeing you again.
Cool.
Yeah.
Might see you on the golfing course.
Yeah, absolutely. And well done with everything you're doing. You
Thank you.
bring to light some important, interesting subjects to us. So
Yeah.
thank you.